Welcome to the podcast, Short Talks.
You know, it is entirely possible right now to just pull out your smartphone, press a button, and within maybe 20 minutes, have practically any meal you can imagine delivered piping hot to your doorstep.
Oh, yeah. It is incredibly easy.
It really is. We are living in this era of unprecedented, almost frictionless consumption. Like if you want something, you just get it immediately.
Right. The moment a craving hits your brain, society has already built a dozen different infrastructures to satisfy it before you even have to stand up.
Exactly. But it makes you wonder, what exactly happens to the human mind or to the soul when the answer to every single physical desire is always just a resounding yes?
Well, it creates this fascinating kind of internal fragility.
Really?
I mean, when we'd ever practice saying no to our impulses, those impulses quietly become our masters.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we walk around thinking we are entirely in control because we have so many choices. But if you look closely at the neurobiology and psychology of it, we are often just being driven blindly by the dopamine loop of immediate gratification.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are taking a stack of sources to explore something that, to a lot of modern listeners, might sound really intimidating.
Or maybe ancient, or just completely irrelevant to a world of food delivery apps.
Right. We are exploring the practice of fasting. Specifically, we're drawing from a profound article by Metropolitan Constantinos of Singapore on the role of fasting in the Orthodox Christian tradition.
Which is a really rich text.
It really is. And if you are new to the spiritual tradition, fasting can look from the outside like an incredibly intense, restrictive religious diet.
Yeah, very rule-heavy.
But our mission today is to simplify this. We want to unpack how this practice isn't fundamentally about food at all. It is a highly developed methodology designed to cleanse the soul and completely dismantle our personal pride.
And looking at Metropolitan Constantinos' work, you quickly realize this tradition offers the ultimate antidote to that modern mentality of excess you just described.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start by clearing the air on what we actually mean when we use the word.
Good idea.
When you say fasting today, my mind instantly goes to, like, Silicon Valley biohackers doing intermittent fasting for longevity or tracking macros.
Right, or maybe a strict list of religious dietary rules where you just swap out burgers for fish on Fridays.
Exactly. So how does this tradition view it?
Well, the modern perception usually boils down to a list of forbidden items or a biological hack, like no meat, no dairy, no oil on certain days.
Right.
And Metropolitan Constantinos points out that while those specific physical boundaries are part of the Orthodox practice, viewing them as the entirety of the practice is drastically incomplete.
Interesting.
Yeah, he uses a very striking phrase to describe that mindset. He calls it a sterile formalism that strips the practice of its spiritual content.
Sterile formalism. Wow. So treating it like a legal contract, basically.
Exactly.
I can imagine that being a huge trap. Like you follow the letter of the law, say, eating a perfectly vegan, incredibly expensive meal, and you feel super self-righteous because you technically didn't break any rules.
Yeah, but you totally missed the spirit of the exercise.
Right.
That is the exact danger he is highlighting. If you reduce it to just checking dietary boxes, like, I didn't eat cheese today, therefore I'm a spiritually advanced person.
Yeah, that doesn't really track.
No, it doesn't. You've bypassed the actual work. In this tradition, fasting from food is merely the outward form. It is literally just the physical starting line for a much more essential internal labor.
Which raises an obvious question for me. If the goal isn't just to cut out dairy and oil, why use food as the starting line at all?
That is the big question.
Right, like why not start by fasting from social media or fasting from talking too much? Why bother restricting the diet if the diet itself isn't the ultimate goal?
Well, to answer that, the article brings in one of the most striking perspectives from the early church, specifically from St. John Chrysostom.
Okay.
Chrysostom was known for his incredible rhetorical skill, and he poses a question that hits with brutal directness.
What does he say?
He asks, essentially, what is the point of abstaining from food if you are busy biting and devouring your brother with your tongue?
Biting and devouring your brother. That paints quite a picture.
It really does.
So he's saying you can have an empty stomach, but a mouth full of venom.
Exactly. Chrysostom is pointing out that fasting of the stomach is entirely useless if it isn't accompanied by a fasting of what the church calls the passions. True fasting has to be holistic.
We should probably define that word, because when I hear passions, I think of having a passion for painting. Or a romantic passion.
Right, a positive thing.
Yeah, it has a very positive connotation in modern English, but that's clearly not how Metropolitan Constantinos is using it here.
No, definitely not. In the context of Orthodox theology, a passion is not a hobby or an enthusiasm. A passion refers to a sinful impulse or a spiritual sickness that has taken root in a person.
Oh, I see.
Think of uncontrolled emotional impulses, deep-seated anger, greed, jealousy, or lust. The word itself shares a root with passivity, meaning these are forces that passively control us.
We are subject to them.
Exactly. So, fasting of the passions means you keep your tongue from slander. You train your eyes away from looking wickedly at others. You keep your hands from committing injustice.
It's like trying to bail water out of a sinking boat without actually patching the hole in the hole first.
That is a perfect analogy.
Like, you can meticulously restrict your diet. You can have the most perfectly compliant, meager plate of lentils in front of you.
Right.
But if you are cruel to your coworkers or lying to your family or harboring deep resentment, you're just bailing water. You completely miss the target, which is the transformation of the soul.
Exactly. And the historical and theological context the article provides through St. Basil the Great takes this even deeper.
How so?
Well, St. Basil teaches that fasting is not some later invention of the church councils. It isn't a medieval add-on. He says it is as old as humanity itself.
Meaning it goes all the way back to the beginning of the biblical narrative.
Yes. He points out that the very first commandment given by God in paradise was actually a commandment to fast.
Wait, really?
Yeah, God forbade Adam and Eve from eating from that one specific tree.
Oh, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Exactly.
So God wasn't worried about the nutritional content of the fruit. He was testing the muscle of self-restraint.
Yes. And St. Basil makes this incredible observation. He says that had Adam fasted from that tree, we wouldn't need to fast today.
Wow.
It frames fasting not as a diet, but as the primal acceptance that we are not the masters of our every desire. It is the recognition that there is a reality higher and more important than the immediate satisfaction of our basic instincts.
Okay, but if the core issue is retraining our instincts and our impulses, I'm still stuck on the physical mechanics of this.
How do you mean?
Well, how does depriving the stomach actually translate to cleansing the mind? Because I think anyone listening to this can relate to the fact that when you skip a meal, you don't instantly feel like a spiritually enlightened monk.
Right, you usually just feel irritable.
Exactly. So the article brings in Evagrius Ponticus to explain the mechanics behind this. Evagrius was a very prominent early ascetic writer, and he identified gluttony as the first and most fundamental gateway for all other passions to enter. We threw another term in there, ascetic, and the article references the Desert Fathers a lot. Who exactly are we talking about here?
So asceticism comes from the Greek word askesis, which literally refers to the rigorous training of an athlete.
Okay.
And the Desert Fathers were these 3rd and 4th century Christians who literally walked out into the Egyptian deserts to live in total isolation.
Just completely off the grid.
Completely.
Yeah.
But they didn't do this just to get away from the world. They went to fight an intense internal spiritual battle.
Right.
You can think of them as some of the earliest psychological researchers of the subconscious. They treated the human mind like a laboratory, observing exactly how thoughts, diet, and behavior all interact.
That makes perfect sense. So Evagrius, from his laboratory in the desert, decides gluttony is the gateway passion.
Yeah. Think about the physical reality of how you feel after a massive, heavy meal. Say, a huge Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, I'm just on the couch for the rest of the day.
Exactly. The physiological truth is that an overfilled stomach literally clouds the mind. It makes you lethargic, heavy, and physically sluggish.
That is definitely true.
Evagrius noted that this physical heaviness ruins a person's capacity for clear discernment and focused prayer. The mind just powers down. Fasting, by contrast, physically and spiritually purifies the mind. It removes that sluggishness, making the intellect light and open to grace.
I have to admit, though, I have a hard time squaring that lightness with my own experience.
How so?
Well, if I have a busy work day and I skip breakfast and push through lunch, by 2 p.m., I am not experiencing clear discernment.
Right.
I'm experiencing a massive drop in blood sugar, and I am ready to snap at the first person who sends me an annoying email. I'm just hangry. How do they separate being irritable from actual spiritual discipline?
That initial irritability is actually the whole point. Yeah. The Desert Fathers would say that your anger at 2 p.m. wasn't created by the empty stomach. The empty stomach just revealed the anger that was already sitting there beneath the surface.
Oh, wow.
When you are full and comfortable, it is very easy to be polite. Your biological needs are met, so your ego is relaxed. But the moment you introduce a minor physical deprivation, your true baseline is exposed. The body fights back.
So the hanger is just the symptom of an ego that is used to getting everything it wants.
Exactly. And in this ascetic tradition, an ego that demands constant comfort leaves the mind incredibly vulnerable. This is why Christ himself fasted for 40 days in the wilderness before facing the temptations of the devil.
He treated fasting as preparation for battle. Like, he wasn't going on a detox retreat. He was putting on armor.
That's a great way to put it. The Desert Fathers understood this deeply. The article references St. John of the Ladder, who describes fasting as a suppression and a mortification of the body.
Mortification is a heavy word. In a modern context, that sounds incredibly negative, almost like medieval self-flagellation. It sounds like you are supposed to hate your physical form.
I know it sounds like that, but the Orthodox tradition views the body as inherently good, created by God. It is meant to be a temple.
Right.
So the goal of this suppression is absolutely not to punish the flesh because it's evil. The goal is to break the addiction, to comfort, and free the body from the tyranny of its impulses.
You are trying to downgrade the body from being a tyrant to being a partner.
Exactly. When the body is constantly indulged, it acts like a spoiled child. It demands food, it demands pleasure, it demands the perfect temperature, and the mind just follows orders to keep it happy.
Yeah, that rings true.
Fasting flips that hierarchy. It disciplines the physical form so that the body can actually become a co-worker in the spiritual life, rather than an obstacle.
That reframes the struggle completely. You are training your body to partner with your soul. I assume this is why fasting is almost never mentioned on its own in these texts. It's always fasting and prayer tied together.
They are mutually interdependent. Prayer focuses the mind on God, and fasting ensures the body isn't pulling the mind back down into a state of lethargy or distraction. Each strengthens the other.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
If the goal is to make the body a strong, disciplined coworker, why do it through weakness? The entire messaging of the modern world, especially in the health and wellness space, is that we should strive to make our bodies as strong, robust, and satiated as possible.
Right. We want to feel invincible.
Exactly. But this tradition deliberately induces physical fragility. Why is weakness a spiritual advantage?
Because it targets the ego with pinpoint accuracy. When you deliberately allow your body to hunger, you are forcing your mind to confront its own profound fragility.
Break that down for me. How does hunger dismantle the ego?
Well, consider how self-sufficient you feel when you're well-fed, financially secure, and comfortable. We walk around feeling strong. We feel capable. We tell ourselves that we are the absolute masters of our own destiny. But when you are fasting and you feel that gnawing emptiness in your stomach, your biology is sending a relentless physical signal that you are entirely dependent.
Dependent on what?
You are dependent on the earth to grow food. You are dependent on farmers to harvest it. And ultimately, you are dependent on God for your very existence.
You know, you can read 100 books on humility or listen to hours of philosophical podcasts, but the moment you realize how desperately you crave a simple piece of bread, that is a jarring reality check.
It really is.
Theoretical instruction can't touch that.
It shatters the illusion of invulnerability. St. Isaac the Syrian, another giant of this tradition, captures this beautifully. He calls fasting a weapon fashioned by God, specifically designed to combat pride.
I love that phrasing.
His reasoning is beautifully simple and grounded in human nature. He basically says, a body weakened by fasting does not easily succumb to arrogance.
It is incredibly hard to be haughty and full of yourself when you are acutely aware of how physically frail you really are. It reminds you that despite all your wealth, or your status at work, or your intelligence, you are fundamentally a fragile creature who needs sustenance to survive.
It strips away all the pretense. You just can't fake your way out of biological hunger.
I have a genuine objection here, though.
Let's hear it.
If we look at this objectively, everything we've talked about, cleansing the mind, confronting our own ego, battling our internal passions, sounds incredibly internal.
Right.
Isn't there a huge danger here of this just becoming a massive exercise in spiritual navel-gazing? Like, if I spend 40 days obsessing over my own internal purity and managing my own hunger, isn't that just narcissism disguised as piety? Does this have any actual impact on the people around us?
That is the most crucial pushback you could offer. And the Orthodox tradition is very emphatic about the answer.
What do they say?
If fasting remains isolated from love of your neighbor, it has absolutely no meaning. It is worse than useless.
So a purely private fast is a failed fast.
Yes. The article brings in a powerful perspective from the Old Testament to illustrate this, from the prophet Isaiah. God, speaking through Isaiah, actively denounces a type of fasting that is accompanied by injustice.
What does a hypocritical fast look like in that context?
Well, picture someone who is strictly observing all the ancient dietary laws. They are making a big public show of their abstinence.
Okay, very pious.
But at the exact same time, they're exploiting their workers, acting cruelly to their family, and ignoring the poor in their community.
Oh, wow.
God says through Isaiah that the true fast he requires is to loosen the bonds of injustice, to let the oppressed go free, and to share your bread with the hungry.
So God is essentially saying that a perfect dietary record means nothing if you're a terrible boss or a cruel neighbor. Abstaining from food without actively doing works of love is actually offensive to God.
It is hypocrisy in its purest form. Metropolitan Constantinos notes that this specific text from Isaiah is read prominently during Great Lent in the Orthodox Church.
To remind people.
Exactly. It is placed there intentionally to serve as a glaring warning to believers. Basically, do not think your dietary restrictions impress the divine if your heart is closed to your fellow human beings.
That takes it out of the realm of self-help entirely. True fasting is inherently an act of social justice.
It is meant to be translated directly into action. St. Basil provides a very practical, almost mathematical instruction on how this is supposed to work.
Oh, I like practical instructions.
He says that when you fast, you naturally save money because you aren't buying fine meats or imported cheeses or expensive delicacies.
Think about the listener right now. Think about the last time you bought a really expensive steak or went out for a lavish dinner.
Right.
If you intentionally chose to buy a bag of lentils instead, and you took that $50 difference and handed it to someone sleeping on the street, how does that change your relationship with your dinner?
That is exactly St. Basil's point. He says the money you save through a simpler diet must not be hoarded in your bank account. It must be given to the poor.
That is amazing.
You take the sustenance you denied yourself, and you provide it to someone who has no choice but to fast because of poverty.
It turns a personal dietary challenge into a mechanism for almsgiving. You are starving your own pride, and with the exact same action, you are physically feeding your neighbor.
It completely bridges the gap between the private spiritual life and the public social life. It is a seamless methodology.
And as a methodology, doing this all on your own sounds completely exhausting.
Oh, absolutely.
If this was just an individual marathon you decided to run whenever you felt like it, I imagine the burnout rate would be incredibly high.
That brings us to the communal aspect, which is the final, crucial piece of this puzzle. In this tradition, you never really fast alone.
Really?
Yeah, it feels like a solitary internal struggle, but it is deeply woven into the church's calendar.
So you aren't just waking up on a random Tuesday and deciding to test your willpower.
No, not at all. Fasting reconnects the believer to the broader community, to the body of Christ. The entire community is preparing together for the great feasts, like Pascha, which is the Orthodox Easter or Christmas.
It's the difference between trying to train for a marathon all by yourself in the dark versus going through a grueling training camp with an entire sports team.
The shared rhythm makes all the difference. You're journeying together with millions of other believers in the exact same spiritual struggle at the exact same time.
That has to be super encouraging.
It strengthens the sense of belonging. You realize you are part of something much larger than your own personal discipline.
So let's look at the whole picture. We started with the modern misconception of fasting as a biohack or a sterile list of religious dietary rules.
And we unpack the holistic reality. As the Church's hymnography during Great Lent summarizes perfectly, true fasting is estrangement from evil.
Right.
It is the restraint of the tongue, setting aside anger, slander, and falsehood. Without doing those things, abstaining from food is completely in vain.
It all comes back to Metropolitan Constantinos' overarching point, which is that fasting is a school of freedom.
Exactly. In a modern world that constantly preaches that satisfying every desire is your fundamental right, fasting proves that true freedom is not slavery to your instincts.
True freedom is the mastery of them.
Yes, it is the ability to look at a powerful desire, acknowledge it, and actually have the internal strength to say no. It prepares you, body and soul, completely united for a true encounter with the divine. It's not deprivation at all. It is liberation.
In a culture built entirely around immediate gratification, frictionless delivery apps, and constant inescapable consumption, perhaps the most radical, rebellious thing you can do to reclaim your mind and test your true freedom is to simply sit with an empty stomach and observe what your soul tries to fill it with.
Thank you very much for your time. See you soon.